I mean, what is wrong with me?
He's throwing a paddy on St. Paddy's Day. It's the one and only Hans Moke Niemann. But why? What's got him so upset over here? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to see the result of the game. We're going to see which one of these two guys won Title Tuesday, 17th of March 26, St. Patrick's Day. The opening move was e4, best by test, and Nihal goes for the aggressive Sicilian. It's online chess on chess.com. 5 minutes each here. We get an open game. Now the pawn captures, knight takes. It's all been seen many times before. And the Najdorf variation is the sharpest. Niemann goes for bishop e3, the so-called English attack. Aggressive setup, going for a castle's queenside usually, and in response, the Scheveningen pawn structure. Now, a nice story was told this evening. Apparently, during World War II, the Germans used this word, Scheveningen, to determine whether or not you were a spy. If you were Dutch, you could say the word. If you were something else, like British, whatever, you couldn't say the word. Okay. Heard it on the podcast tonight, or the broadcast, sorry. Never heard that one before. Full-blown aggression now from Niemann, but he just puts a lid on it. Doesn't go complete caveman. Instead goes for pawn f3, bolstering the centre. We see some fight back on the queen side. This could be on the cards, so the pawn covers the b4 square. This bishop hits the long diagonal. Queen d2. We see what's on the way. There we go. An oh, and it's not Christmas. It's aggressive chess. Nihal fights back on the half-open file. It's a classic Sicilian battle. White's pounding away over here. Black's pounding away over here. This is what we came to see. And d5 is a counter thrust in the centre. Very good chess strategy. If you're getting attacked on the flank, counter in the centre. Usually. Obviously the top guys break the rules, but the rules of thumb aren't bad for us mere mortals. Now you can't push e5, the square's covered. So we see takes. Usually black's doing pretty well. If you can achieve pawn d5 under good circumstances, there's a bit of pressure down here. We now see king b1, always play it, keep Lord Hans Feingold happy. Queen c7, pressures this pawn, and Niemann's not actually so bothered. This is what makes him such a dangerous blitz player. He goes for his own play, not too fussed about this. We see the bishop headed here, and not d3 to cover the pawn, because you run into knight e5. Anyway, that move comes on the board. There's pressure here. Yes, it's covered, but it's sensitive. Who knows if this comes one day? So the rook decides to move. Not saying it was good at that moment, but it's prophylactic chess. The pawn's now pressured, and you can play g5. One of the best moves. Bishop f4, also looking really nice. Those are different games, not played. Niemann goes for the absolutely wild knife f5. Wow, he's here to do some smoking. Hits the bishop, hits the pawn with check, defends this one. But of course we have to ask the obvious. What happens if you take? You shouldn't be allowed to put the knight there. Well, we're going to find out. It happened in the game. Bishop's loose. The point is revealed. However, you've left the protection of this pawn. Taking immediately, not good though. This is the back cave, analysis mode. King should step to a2. It actually sits well on this diagonal with no light squared bishop. And the trouble is, that knight was hanging. You can drop back to defend, but then there's moves like this. And if stinky f6, there's this, and this, and this. You didn't want to take with the queen or this, and you're losing stuff. I guess if here, bishop c4, getting fossilized. Way too many problems, basically, to start taking and give white all this time. So this was played. Very prudent. Bishop f4, if played at this point, isn't as strong. Takes with check. And now the knight moves. These are different lines. King's not there to be checked. And so on. So we didn't see bishop f4. We saw bishop d4. The knight's about to drop. And Niemann, of course, is giving an entire pawn just to accelerate his own play. Fascinating game. The board now opening up for the bishops. Exactly what white might want here. It's craziness. Knight c6 is played. Good move to hit the bishop and threaten things like knight b4 check at the right moment, or pawn b4. So we see bishop d3 hitting the queen. She slides to a4, pressures on the king, very scary, and bishop c3 is now the response, and it is a very necessary move because you have to be ready to respond to the move that was played next. It's knight b4, of course, going to Forktown, population hands Niemann, takes is forced, pawn takes of course not possible, and you had to deal with the threat. Now we see bishop recaptures, and it hits the rook on e1. Now the game's in the balance here. Opposite coloured bishops favours the side that's attacking, but who's attacking? Well, they both are really. The rook should move somewhere, and the game rumbles on. But that wasn't played. Niemann plays the blunderific. Bishop takes on f5. But it's pretty harsh. I mean, it's such a natural move to win that pawn, pick up the tempo on the rook. The problem, though, is this move, and this move only. Rook c5. Even for a small man, Niemann rook lifts with real power. Sorry, Nihal completely messed that one up. Queen now goes away here, and we see it lost. So we ask a question here. Why not go queen b3 and try and exchange that attacking piece and then play on from there? Well, the problem is the rook on e1 is hanging in these lines. So you don't have so many good squares for the queen. So we see this played. It allows this brilliancy, taking the bishop, opening up the attack of this bishop. But this is what Niemann's got planned in response. Now I messed up a little bit. The queen isn't lost. It looks like it's lost, but you can take here. But what we do get after these ones all go into the blender is an endgame where black is a pawn ahead, and this is a messy structure. Let's see how things proceeded here. Nihal gets his kingside majority going. This one now clamps on the position in just a moment, but it isn't quite won. It got me wondering, could the king wander all the way around, then maybe step to g4 and actually win the pawn? Yes, that entire plan is possible, but by the time you get there, white checks and wins the g-pawn, so you exchange prisoners. Therefore, the immediate pawn push leads to a pretty similar thing. This is how things went on. H-pawn now marching, so not only is Nihal a pawn ahead, but of course these ones are woeful. No counterplay to realistically speak of. Niemann's trying to hold that draw here, but it shouldn't actually be possible. However, a mistake is made. Shows how tricky these endgames are. Rook f4 is actually the play here, and you go for this pawn, and you just leave this little bit of breathing room between king and pawn. You don't play this and box in your own king. There is now a drawing line here. I don't want to show it immediately because a couple more moves are played. Let's reach the key position, which is here. How does white force home a draw in this position? The answer is king f2. Well done if that occurred to you. Not played, as we can see. Now the reason this draws is you box in the black king, and if the rook tries to check you away, you step back, and you can never actually head behind these pawns or anything, because after the rook slides along the sixth, yes, you can win one with check, but the king steps back in and you're threatening to mate. This is really the big thing. The black king is stuck in the corner. The checkmating threats are very real, so you just don't have time to mop up and push the b pawn. You have to cover the back rank. White waits. You can check, fine, but you step. And then what to do? This is a threat of checkmate. So you really do have to cover that. You can check, but you step back in. And eventually, you either get a threefold repetition, or you have to step back and cover your first rank. And again, it's just repetition. So that was the way to do it. Step in, box the king, not played. In the game, we saw rook to g5 here, and it's a huge mistake because now rook b1 can be played. Why is this position so different? You're about to find out. The king steps in at this moment, but check, king f1, rook takes on b3, and the big difference here is that we don't have these same mating threats like in the other lines. So by the time white tries to arrange that, black's able to escape the box into the g2 square. Everything's different. You can now build that bridge, cover the king, push the h-pawn. There's Queenie. She's been in the delivery suite for a long time. The baby girl's on the board. Check is played here. The big question we now have to ask ourselves is, how does that pawn feel after becoming a queen?
They're changing into a different piece. They're not going to be themselves anymore. It's like, you know, am I myself if I change into someone else? Like, it's existential questions for the pawns.
And having now considered that with Ray Robson, we must tell you,
I literally had a draw. I mean, what is wrong with me?
that Nihal Sarin won the entire event with 10 out of 11. Well played him. Niemann was very angry that he didn't make that draw. When he saw there was a draw, he finishes in somewhere the top 10 or so. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have a look at the video on screen if you want some more epic chess, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.